All right, man. I'm really excited about this interview, man. We're here with Josh Williams, a state representative from Ohio, a lawyer, man. And you've done a lot of really cool things and you've overcame a lot of adversity. And so I heard that you were a homeless high school dropout and now you're a state rep and a lawyer. Like, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, first, hey, thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, in Toledo, Ohio, man, I was an 18-year-old senior when I dropped out of high school and I became homeless. I spent like 6 months sleeping on park benches, kind of bouncing from friend's house to friend's house, trying to make my way. Kind of overcame that a little bit, met the mother of my son and started working at the railroad. And then at the age of 21, I fell 30 feet and destroyed my spine.
Wow.
So I've had over 40 procedures on my spine. I have metal in my spine. I have a full fusion of my lower back to my pelvis, and laid in bed for 6 years disabled, man. Grew to like 458 pounds at my heaviest.
Wow.
Kind of gave up there for a minute, and met some good doctors, some good lawyers, some good mentors, and with the support of my family, kind of overcame that. And at the age of 29, after having weight loss surgery and 40 procedures on my spine, including 5 major procedures, I felt healthy enough to get out of bed. And we kind of fought with the state of Ohio for a year for me to be able to go to college as an injured worker. They didn't want to give me permission, but we overcame that. And at 30, I enrolled at the University of Toledo as a freshman. And 5 years later, at 35, I graduated from law school with my third degree. So I have an associate's, a bachelor's with honors. I graduated magna cum laude. I got a full scholarship to UT Law, graduated from law school a semester early. And at 35, I became a practicing attorney. I went on to be a college professor at Adrian College, where I teach constitutional law. And then I ran for state representative in 2022. And when I was sworn in on January 3rd of 2023, I became the first Black Republican in the Ohio House in 50 years. And this year on January 6th, when I got sworn in, I became the first Black majority whip in Ohio's history.
Wow.
Dang.
That was
amazing.
incredible.
Man, I didn't know all that.
That was incredible.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you fought a lot of adversity.
Yeah. So I can see why, you see things the way you do, and you're not like the opposite of a victim right there.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, you have a very unique path. And I've seen you've been very outspoken against DEI. And obviously with a background like you have come from being disabled and going through the things you've been through, some would say DEI should benefit you, but you're very against it. Could you share why you have a stance against DEI and what some of the reasons for that are?
Yeah, I mean, I believe diversity can be beneficial, right? We want to see a diverse, a classroom, a diverse chamber, a diverse boardroom, at a Fortune 500 company. But the problem is when you have forced diversity by government or by businesses, what happens is it diminishes the image of the individuals that made it into that boardroom, into that classroom, onto that board, onto that chamber, merely because everyone will assume the reason you're there is because of DEI and not that you're qualified. We made tremendous strides to gain access. We always wanted to be treated equally. But now the left, and I'll speak frankly, the white liberal wants to take credit for our accomplishments by saying the reason you are there is because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you can't be there unless we promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm not going to give anybody ownership of the obstacles I overcame, the hard work that I had to put in, staying up late nights, still coaching kids in sports and going home and reading until 2 o'clock in the morning, going to class at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to let anybody take ownership of that. And I know from the studies that I've read, I know from personal experience and talking to people in my community, that DEI has led to this viewpoint that the only reason Black people are in the room is you're a DEI hire. And that just reinforces racial stereotypes. It actually hurts our community. And what we've seen from the studies is DEI actually is just a way of the left being able to push in the minority communities that they want. So we're not seeing substantial growth in Black representation. We're seeing substantial growth in white women getting the position or LGBTQ members getting the position over us. But yet we are the scapegoats for the policy, saying if you take it away, it's going to harm Black people. But the studies show that's not true. That's not accurate. And then the second part of it is this equity thing, right? We went from demanding equality to demanding equity. And equity means we want a equal outcome, not equal opportunity, but an equal outcome, meaning, 13% of America is black. That means, a room full of 100 people, 13 of them must be black. Well, what happens when you can only find a few qualified black candidates that meet the requirements to get in the room? The answer is the woke left will tell you, will drop the standards, give an extra bump to the applicant because they're part of a minority group. And what that does is the individuals in the room start looking at all of us as though we're unqualified. It diminishes our ability to get in that room based off of our merits, and it just reinforces the idea that you can't be here without my assistance, right? I mean, the white liberal loves to remind us of slavery, but understand that we weren't freed, we were emancipated. We were provided slavery. They want to remind us that everything we have is given to us by them, and I'm not going to let them take ownership of my story.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Do you think they know what they're doing when they do that?
Oh, absolutely. I believe it's a concerted effort. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. It's funny when I say this, but it's absolutely true, right? I move in a lot of conservative circles and a lot of Republican circles, and the most racism I've ever experienced in my life has been from white liberals.
Wow.
The idea that you need to stay in your place, right? And if I speak out, somehow I'm hurting their cause. I actually had a white liberal in college when I was at the University of Toledo tell me, I volunteered for 2 summers in the black community. I know what's better for black people.
Wow.
And I told him, I said, you don't understand how racist that is. I'm a black man married to a black woman in a black family, raised in poverty in the inner city, had dead roaches removed from my ears when I was 5 years old, and I have hearing loss because of how many ear infections I had. I overcame being on public assistance. I overcame poverty, being raised by a single. And you're going to tell me because you spent 6 months volunteering in my community that you know what's best for us. That's just a closeted way of telling me to stay in my place. And unless I, espouse the views that you want, I'm going to be ostracized and put in my place. And that's sad that that's where we've gotten in America, especially in politics.
Yeah.
Dang.
No,
dang.
that's facts. Like I really agree with a lot of the things you're saying, like how they try to take credit for you being there in the room with these initiatives, and they try to tell you like they know better than you, and like then I've noticed another thing white liberals do when they try to discredit your argument. They say you're having white supremacist talking points.
Yeah. So like I talked about on the floor during our Senate Bill 1 speech, like, how about we get to the root cause of the problem, right? How about we go and attack gun violence in the inner city? How about we go and attack single motherhood and fatherless homes? Because we know the studies have shown there's a disproportionate outcome of individuals being engaged either in the criminal justice system, dropping out of high school, being homeless, all because they come from single mother households and fatherless homes. How about we address those issues? How about we go into inner cities and say, why are our schools underperforming, even though sometimes they get 2 and 3 times the amount of state funding than white peer schools? I can show you schools in my old district where on one side of the street, you go to Start High School, which is Toledo Public. On the left side of the street, you go to Washington local Whitmer High School, and they had 30% differences in reading proficiencies. They live in the same neighborhood. They're neighbors. Their houses are worth the same amount, and they almost had identical diversity stats between the 2 schools, but the reading proficiency was drastically different. And what I will argue is you have to understand, liberals do not have our best interests at heart. When I'm talking us, I mean black people. They do not have our best interests at heart, because why would they ever help us dig ourselves out of poverty when they know the studies show that the higher you climb socioeconomically, the higher you climb on a socioeconomic ladder, the less you will vote based off of DEI, maintaining welfare, maintaining SNAP benefits. You start voting based off of what my taxes are, how good is the school district, what my property values are like. You start voting based on an economic basis. And you tend to start voting more Republican because that's the agenda of the Republican Party. They know this. So why would they ever help us dig ourselves out of poverty naturally when they can make it where you can graduate from high school and you can barely read? We just saw that lawsuit. Somebody graduated from high school at towards the top of her class and is illiterate. So these are huge issues. They absolutely know what they're doing because they use us as a tool. If they keep us in poverty, we keep coming back for their vote because we need something from them. Our votes are literally bought and paid for because every election cycle, they either say, I'm going to give you reparations, or they're going to say the mean white conservative Republican is going to take away your benefits that we've been giving you.
They treating us like the immigrants.
Yeah. I got a question. What made you want to become a Republican? Like, what made you decide to choose that side? Because, you know, some people be confused, like, why do black people want to be Republicans?
Right.
That's a great question.
Yeah, so I was a career independent. People can look at my voting history. I prided myself on being an independent. And the reason was two parts. In Ohio, if you pull a ballot in a primary, whichever party you pull, they register you as part of that party. As a lawyer and as a conservative, I feel like that's an infringement of my free speech. It would mean more if I walk into the Board of Elections and say, I want to be a Republican or I want to be a Democrat. But that's not the way it is here in Ohio. And in addition, knowing now in politics, as an independent, it always seemed like someone was coming asking for my vote. So I was able to hold my politicians accountable by saying, these are the issues I care about. If you want my vote, you need to champion these issues. And if you don't, I'm going to vote you out next time. As an independent, I had that power. But when I decided to go into politics, I looked at what my policy positions were, what I cared about and what I believed in. And I looked at the two-party platforms. And I saw that in Ohio, I am required to believe in abortion up to birth in order to be a Democrat. I am required to believe in confirming an individual's gender identity to be a Democrat. I have to allow children to transition in Ohio to be a Democrat.
Wow.
But as a Republican, our platform is open. You can believe anything in Ohio and be a Republican and get elected as a Republican. Now, sometimes that causes a little bit of heartache because we get, you know, Democrats that are in Republican districts will run as a Republican in order to get elected. But I prided myself on the ability that I can maintain all of my views, all of the character that was built in me, and I can walk according to my faith in Jesus Christ and be an elected official, knowing that I can do the good that I can within the Republican Party. And most people would think that the Republicans were going to reject me. And man, they were excited about my candidacy when I declared. And everyone knew I was a conservative. I was a right-leaning conservative that was registered as an independent.
Wow. Okay. So with that being said, I feel like we kind of had a similar, you know, realization with our core values and things that we cared about, like all the things you just listed. And we kind of realized, hold on, I think I lean more right than left. But naturally, as, you know, young black men, we were programmed to think we have to lean left or we're not black. How do you think they got it to the point where if you don't agree with the left, that they will question your blackness and call you different names and things like that?
Well, see, it started with a belief that they own us. And I'll pause and let that bake for a little bit. I mean, literally, the same party used to own us, right? It was the Southern Democrats that owned our bodies in chattel slavery. And then afterwards, they were the one that put in the black codes and Jim Crow back in the South. And it got to a point where they couldn't own our bodies anymore, and they figured out a way to own our minds. And that was in the 1960s and 70s, post-civil rights action, where you saw Herbert Hoover, FBI, they believed the black empowerment movement was a national security crisis. And the federal government took affirmative steps to dissolve the base of the Black Power movement, which was a two-parent household that had disposable income and no college degrees. And they took affirmative steps to do that, weaponizing the welfare system, getting the man out of the household, deindustrializing our inner city schools so you couldn't graduate with certificates for plumbing or electrician like you could before, making it where you had to go to college to be successful. These were concerted efforts to break up our household so we wouldn't have a strong voting base and get us hooked on public assistance. And now since the 1970s, we've shifted to where the majority of black people vote Democrat. And now in modern politics, they believe our votes are bought and paid for, that they don't have to answer to us anymore. I mean, you heard Joe Biden when he was running. What did he say? If you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Yeah. Right. He said these people gonna have y'all put back in chains. Right. He played on that racial card in order to get our vote. They don't believe our vote is bought and paid. They believe our vote is bought and paid for. And they learned a lesson in 2024. They saw that if just a small margin of the black community shifts their vote, they lose elections. Some of them are wising up now and trying to come home and say, well, what can I do for you now? But they got a history of using us and putting in policies that are left-leaning and LGBTQ guided. But we don't realize how powerful our voices are, man. Like, the black vote in America can be the deciding vote in almost every national election.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm starting to notice that. People were saying that we had a big impact during the election. They were like, man, like, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have voted for Trump, or just seen the stuff that you guys saw that we brought up on the channel to just show them that this is the stuff that they're doing, and we need to probably vote on the other side this time.
Definitely.
Yeah, man, you're reaffirming like all the stuff that we watch and we know, man. You're doing God's work, truly, man.
Yeah, you are.
Facts,
You
definitely.
are. It seems like every time we talk to somebody who we really like look up to, like you, Byron Donalds, Wesley Hunt, Vivek Ramaswamy, people like that, it just seems like we relate more on our core values and stuff. And like the people that they prop in front of black people on TV, like Van Jones,
Al Sharpton,
people like that. It's like
Joy Reid.
And then these are the people that are questioning your blackness, but it's like, I'm sorry to say it, but these are like feminine men a lot of the time. So it seems like more of the masculine men seem to vote right. I'm sorry. Like, do you see what I'm saying with that?
Yeah. So it seems they like to put up these classical black Democrats that was raised in the 60s and 70s and 80s in the Democrat Party, right? Where we were making that transition over to the Democrat Party for the majority of black people. But go ahead and put a young black Democrat on there, and all you're going to do is hear that modern left-leaning push towards LGBTQ issues, towards high taxes on everybody, towards this idea of socialism, that you don't need to work hard. The government should provide everything for you. It isn't genuine.
Yeah.
Right. Those older Democrats are bought and paid for now. I mean, I will never listen to Al Sharpton. I know his history. I know how he sold us out. I know he was a snitch back in the day. That man can't say a word to me and get my ear.
For real.
But some of these modern Democrats, man, all they do is play on emotion.
Yeah.
There's no facts to anything they say. And, give me facts over feelings any day. Give me the logical argument over the emotional argument any day. Because we're talking about black lives, man. When we're talking about political empowerment of black people, we're losing 19 million black babies inside of the womb. We're losing hundreds of people every weekend in our inner cities to shootings and gun violence. These are issues that need to be addressed, right? We're watching as the Democrat Party put tens of thousands of black men in prison during the drug wars. And Biden prided himself on that, right? He thought that was a great thing. And it took Donald Trump to do the First Step Act and allow those people to come home from prison because they infused crack cocaine into the black community and then weaponized it to get the men out of the household and get the women put on public assistance. But as soon as the heroin epidemic hit the suburbs, treatment became the priority, not incarceration, right? They dissolved our families, but as soon as they hit their doorsteps, they said, no, let's do treatment instead of incarceration for individuals because of the opiate epidemic. We just wanted to be treated fairly, man. The politics need to straighten out. Stop playing us like we fools. Black people are becoming educated. The internet has changed the game, right? Before you used to just listen to your local pastor who told you to vote Democrat or your grandmother who told you to vote Democrat. Now people got the chance to come on podcasts and listen to you smart guys articulate points that we know, that we've studied, and we know what the answers are, but we're watching the average person come across that information because of the internet and the podcasts and Twitter and Facebook and all of the avenues to get information out to people. And you guys are doing great work, man. I've been watching your show for a long time, long time. And you're doing good work.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, man.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was very refreshing, man. It's always refreshing to talk to somebody who's very, like-minded and, somebody who is a good example to black people everywhere,
Definitely. And I think a lot of young men could be inspired by your story because I'm 26 years old. So I'm getting to like adulthood, like finally getting to be recognized as a young man. So I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to notice like a lot of people I grow up with start to give up and feel like they missed their shot. And you saying you got to college at 29 and became a lawyer at 35 and all the things you overcame can just inspire so many to know that you can still make something happen. Like you're very inspiring, someone we should place on a pedestal, really, and look up to?
I don't want to be on a pedestal. I just try to be real and authentic, man. Like I've been that dude that was hopeless before. If you give me a second, I'll tell you, man. So when I was 21, I failed. When I was 23, I got home from work after a 12-hour shift and couldn't feel my legs. Right, I took a nap on the couch and I woke up and my legs were numb. And they rushed me to the hospital, and I found out I had to have emergency back surgery. So in January of 2008, I had my first back surgery. 6 months later, I had my second back surgery. After that, I was never the same. I laid in bed for 2 consecutive years, right? I blew up to 458 pounds. I saw every neurosurgeon, orthopedic surgeon in Toledo. They all told me the same thing. Be happy if you can walk with a walker. Here goes some pain pills. Collect your disability check. This is your life.
Wow.
And I went home in 2009 and sat, and it was June of 2009. I sat on the edge of my bed with my gun, and I planned on blowing my head off.
Wow.
I had arranged for my ex-wife to take my kids. I had 2 step-kids and my son, Matthew. I hadn't picked up my son since he was 1 year old. He was 3 at the time. I'd sent them away. She was supposed to go to Myers and take my kids there. And I wrote out my suicide note, and I was crying on the bed, praying to God to forgive me for what I was about to do. And my 3-year-old walked in the room. Something that told my ex-wife to leave him behind, even though I hadn't cared for him in almost 2 years. And I tucked my gun away, and man, I cried like crazy. Back then, I used to look at myself as a victim, man. I used to curse God. I used to ask him, why me? Why me? You know, why did I have to have a 68-year-old dad when I was born? Why my dad had to die from cancer when I was 5? Why did I have to get raised by a single mother? Why did I have to live up in poverty? Why did I have to drop out of high school? Why, when I was doing everything right, working hard, raising 3 kids, married, I fall? I used to curse him and be like, why? And in that moment, man, that man spoke to me. And he said, why not you? Why can't you be the first one in your family to go to college? Why can't you overcome this disability? Why can't you, overcome? And I made a covenant with him that day. I said, man, if you just show me the path and the way forward, I promise I'd put in the hard work. And man, within months, the right lawyer got in my corner, the right doctor. I got sent to Cleveland. I had my next 2 back surgeries. I got stable. Man, my lawyer told me, if you went and did a 2-year degree, I hire you as a paralegal. I was really good at workers' comp law. And I said, okay, bet. We tried to go to college. Ohio said, you can't. If you're an injured worker and you enroll in college, we're going to cut off your disability.
That's
I
crazy.
said, man, that's crazy. They said, if you can sit in a classroom for 8 hours, you can work minimum wage for 8 hours a day, and we'll pay you the difference in your wages for 5 years. And then you should be used to lower wages, and that's the rest of your life. And we fought for a year, and we threatened to sue Ohio, and Ohio backed off. And I got a third party to pay for my first 2 years of tuition, and I enrolled in college at the age of 30. And the rest is history, man. Once I got there and I got exposed to knowledge, I got to debate with other students, and I had a 4.0 at the end of my first 2 semesters, and I'm killing it. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm not going to stop just at 2 years. I'm going to try to get my bachelor's. And then as soon as I got close to my bachelor's, man, law school seemed feasible, man. And I moved on to law. Everything was just one step, putting my head down and grind it, overcome. But it all started with that little boy walking in that room that day. That all started with God putting hope back in my life that I could overcome this stuff, man. And every step of the way, man, it just became more real and more real. So I could have easily took the easy road out, man. I graduated. I became a high-profile attorney up here in Lucas County in Ohio. I started beating murder cases, taking on major cases at my law firm. I was a rising star here. And I went home to my wife. We were 4 months away from my wedding, and I told her I didn't want to be a lawyer no more. I said I was miserable. I'm looking at a criminal justice system that's just an assembly line of black men. Some of them I know are innocent, but I got to charge them thousands of dollars, and I feel bad. And my wife told me, suck it up, buttercup. We got a wedding to pay for. And we got married, and we went on our honeymoon, and 4 months later, I still had that empty feeling like God was calling me to do something different, man. And I prayed to him again. I said, if you show me the path, man, I will take on the charge. I put in the hard work. And politicians just started coming out of everywhere. Hey, man, we heard you interested in running for office. I said, I know that's a lie. I'm an independent. How you don't even know me. What are you talking about? They're like, nah, somebody told me to come. Something told me to come talk to you. And, man, that's how I went home to my wife. And I said, my wife's name, Niera. I said, Niera, I'm thinking about cutting my practice back and going into politics. And she had 2 responses for me. She said, 1, make sure the party will support you. She said, because I'd be disappointed if you didn't. It's not every day a man that looks like you get to go into politics with your story. And 2, it almost never happens that you get to do it within the Republican Party, the party that controls Ohio, and you can have substantial impact on what affects us. She said, so I'd be disappointed if you didn't try. And the rest is history.
Wow.
That is extremely inspiring, man.
That's a great story.
man.
How could you hear that and feel sorry for yourself? Like,
Hey, man, you're a walking testimony.
no, yeah,
Facts.
an
Actually.
overcomer.
100% facts.
That's crazy, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, man. I feel like I need to go do some push-ups or something.
Hey,
like
yeah,
that.
I feel like I'm
We're gonna
role
get you
playing right
back
now.
on. We're gonna get you back on. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure you can. I mean,
yeah.
you have the facts, man. You're a lawyer, so I mean, hey, if
Yeah.
a lawyer sitting here telling you,
Yeah.
a black lawyer,
Argue with him.
you
I dare
can't. You know, he gonna read. He got the facts.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
feel me? So, hey, man, this is amazing, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Thank
appreciate
you
you,
so much
man.
for your time.
You're a
That
dog,
was
straight up.
powerful.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on. Invite me back whenever, man. I'll always make
Definitely.
time for you guys.
Yes, sir.
Definitely,
Thank you so
man.
much.
Yes, sir.